Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here, big honor. We want to talk today about cybersecurity in Web3. Maybe a brief introduction of the people you see here on stage. My name is Matthias Niehoff. I'm a senior manager at Accenture Strategy, and I have the honor to host this panel today. The first guest here on stage, we are very honored that you are here, Marina Khaustova, the CEO of Crystal Blockchain, with more than 12 years of entrepreneurial experience, and providing with Crystal Blockchain a blockchain-based analytics tool for central as well as decentral entities. Marina, it's great to have you on stage. Thank you very much for coming. And next to me, Hartmut Müller, the Chief Transformation Officer of ServiceNow and formerly CTO of Mercedes-Benz. One of the leading experts in Web3, and we are very honored to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So let's kick this off. Cybersecurity is obviously a big topic in today's Web2 already. And we want to use the chance here today to discuss special requirements and specifics we need to consider when we talk about Web3. Let's start easy, because many people are still talking about the metaverse. This is one of the most well-known parts of DLT, of blockchain, and the Web3. So Hartmut, first question to you. Where do you see specific requirements when we talk about cybersecurity in the metaverse?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's about if you extend the physical world with the virtual world, and especially when we are looking into what I'm always saying is, from a B2B perspective, the most relevant topic. It's the industrial metaverse, where you are talking digital twins, where you are talking digital twins of cars, digital twins of factories, for instance, and also digital twins of warehouses. So, and even if you're having that and extending also the physical world, it's rather like you are having a digital endpoint, so to say, from a technology point of view, from a fundament point of view. And then looking into security, it's the same what you need in the Web2 world, You have to have the right identity access management, for instance. You have to have the right endpoint protection to a certain extent. And bringing these elements together, I think it's quite interesting to see how an overall enterprise architecture is handling that. So, and of course, and I think that's very important because software and hardware are accelerating with a different speed, and especially human capabilities, when you look to that, are also far behind. You have to bring this together. So it's a convergence out of virtual and physical world to that.
Marina, security is one of the key features of any blockchain due to its decentralized setup. From your experience, where do you see the big challenges of cybersecurity in distributed ledger technology?
Well, it's obvious that decentralized technologies, they were invented to actually fight fraud and to bring in transparency. And it may sound paradoxically that it opens up the avenue for the fraudsters of all kinds, including, again, metaverse. And we see, again, many examples of that. But to me, from my understanding, it's a natural flow of things because you are having a new technology, particularly that opens some opportunities in the financial segment. And this opportunity, of course, is getting abused of all kinds of bad actors who are trying to get advantage of a new unregulated space. That's a normal phase that the industry is going through, and luckily we see this phase coming to an end because this transparency becomes, we are using it for good, and we are using it right now. Nevertheless, a lot of examples right now that you should not be taking these issues of security lightly. Particularly in metaverse, the question of impersonation, right, which is being employed in many cases, in many examples. It is still real that people are creating metaverses, then selling tokens as an access to that, and then just disrupting the whole thing, leaving investors dry and with nothing. And it's still a very prevalent thing, particularly in the APAC region. And I started speaking about borders and about country, but metaverse is borderless, right? When you're entering a space which technically resembles, the real life in a digital world, what we can say about the borders, what we can say about, privacy measures, that can be deployed. It's not something, which can be enforced lightly, and this should be thought thoroughly. So yeah, again, in this particular space, we see a lot of troubles right now, and broader application, for businesses that also poses a lot of questions, and it calls for a better understanding of what is possible right now. 51% attacks, right, when the governance wasn't thought well through, and when a malicious group of actors takes over the whole thing, that's still happening right now, right? Wrongly selected protocols, which again there was no time, proper time devoted during the development phase to the security measures, and just other players just picking up this technology and building their businesses on that, and then again losing that. That's also not a small thing right now. And yeah, all kind of impersonation, wrongly issued certificates of authenticity for art. We see all kinds of that happening right now. And luckily, we have tools right now to discover that and track that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe let me add one thing to that. And I think it's very important also when you look from a B2B perspective on it. And it doesn't matter whether you create your metaverse completely separate from your original business, or whether it's quite included. Data privacy and data security is the key, actually, also for the trust towards the customer.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, actually. And that means as well that you have to have the right policies, that you have to have the right governance also applied. And I think also when you look to the overarching topic of Web3 and blockchain, it's very relevant that we are going into this, there's a policy for doing it, because that helps also the broader community to apply it, and to create it and introduce it to companies and also to special business models.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Like investing a lot at the very beginning, and spending more time, more effort on thinking that through definitely pays back, because again, trust is very important, and that's what you build from the very beginning. And I'm not saying that any new product, freshly established product is wrong by design, but definitely we see some players who invested years already, or like decade in building that, having, very right direction and keeping security as a priority. Yeah.
Right.
Marina, let's talk a little bit about your company, about Crystal Blockchain. So as I said in the beginning, you are providing blockchain-based analytics tools. Can you share some details around that? So what are your measures you are taking to kind of prevent and preserve from threats?
Yeah, of course. Crystal Blockchain is a blockchain analytics company. We are monitoring the space transactions, and we can understand how digital assets are changing owners and what's going on with the digital assets over the course of their life. So that actually powers many, many aspects of companies dealing with digital assets, including compliance or investigative capacities. And I must say that back in 2018, when we started, this space was very different to what we see right now. Back in the days, these tools were employed only by enthusiasts who actually expected regulation to come in, who understood that trust will be actually critical. And they were rare people, rare companies, I tell you. And then we saw, of course, 2019, 2020, so-called crypto winter. A lot of these one-day companies have been washed out from the market, and only those who actually understood the power of regulation stood still. And the regulators started, looking very closely at this space. So monitoring the space of these digital assets and how they move became critical and very essential for the space and for the industry's development further on. And now, 2023, after last year, maybe some of you remember or heard about what was happening with the FTX, the exchange that actually crashed and caused crash of many other businesses. And we still see a huge impact, on the whole industry from that event. Technically, the most frequent question that I had over the course of this year: could we prevent this case if we looked at your data, if we were interested to find out what was going on? And the answer is yes. So right now, this space of analyzing how blockchain transactions are happening, how assets are moving, it actually gives you an opportunity not only deal with the consequences of something really bad that has happened, but it actually arms you to prevent something really bad from happening. It actually allows you to step in very early in the incidents. To understand, again, when you're observing a bridge or a particular protocol, and you can train AI to actually monitor odd movements. And when this odd movement is happening, you can react to that. You can protect your own business by acting. You don't need to wait, while someone confirms on Twitter that, yes, we have been hacked. You see this immediately, and you're able to, again, deploy some actions. And I see a lot of power in that. And this shift from being reactive to being proactive is the challenge and the opportunity at the same time for us.
Proactiveness is very important, actually.
Hartmut, let's also talk a little bit about the corporate perspective on this. Yeah? I mean, in your current role as Chief Transformation Officer at ServiceNow, but especially also as CTO of Daimler, what would you recommend corporations to take measures with regard to cybersecurity in the Web3?
I think many things are relevant for this. And the first thing you have to say, is Web3 part of your value chain, of the overall value chain? Will it be embedded, so-called, as a Trägertechnologie, foundational technology in what you are doing from a corporate point of view? So if you have that, and I think we've seen also a lot of stuff today where companies first started with NFT, digital art, and it was more a side thing, building communities and then linking the stuff backwards towards the original value chain, the original product. So, and I think it's very important when you are saying it's part of your foundation, and if you really, I would say, see that it is a really decentralized technology, which especially goes into how data is handled, and how you can create additional business models for the data, I think then it is a true endpoint, then it's a true data topic and also a true security topic. Then you have to treat it, I would say, the same way you treat also Web2 stuff. So that means you have to be very careful, for instance, if IT is attacked and it goes into lateral moves towards OT, it is converging towards that. And because you are talking, when you're talking about a car, for instance, it's about a digital endpoint you are having, And if you think that backwards, it's like a huge network, and you have to protect the digital endpoint and the data within the digital endpoint the same way like you protect data in an HR system, for instance. I think these things are now coming together so that I'm saying it is converging, not only IT and OT, it is also converging, let's say, the digital and the physical world, and therefore you have to think it like that, and then you can apply sometimes same measures to what you have already applied to your Web2 environment.
Yeah, and I believe that you're becoming, you're taking on a lot of responsibility because the end users are trusting you, so you select right technology, again, right combination of the technologies that you use.
Yeah, I think it's also, when you look to that, for instance, like blockchain. Blockchain, of course, can help you when you, create traceability about your overall value chain, So that means, and that I think is very important, that is trustworthy. Because, I had yesterday a discussion about sustainability and ESG, and also, of course, security paid in, but Web3 paid into that. And you can leverage that technology, of course, for that to your entire value chain, to your suppliers, which are whatever, globally around the world. And then it's even more mature compared to if someone is doing a self-certification and something like that.
Of course.
It's a very good point. And still, many people know blockchain from the cryptocurrencies, right? Everybody is talking about this. So there is, of course, lots of discussion in the media. There is some fraud. People are saying this is not controllable. This is even financing terrorists, right? So all these discussions we read in our daily newspapers. Marina, from your current perspective from Crystal Blockchain, what's your take in this? Do you see this as an exciting new era, or do you see this as a very dangerous field?
Well, I'll be transparent up front. All these gloom things, they really happen, but they also happen with the traditional cash. And if you compare what's going on blockchain, what we discover, what we can see, if you compare all the bad things, to what we saw with the traditional cash, it's incomparable. The magnitudes are just astonishing, and the fact that it's brought to our attention, that causes a very funny paradox, because these cases of fraud or funding terrorists or sanction evasion, they become visible because they're using a technology that makes them visible. But at the same time, the media amplifies this enormously and says, look what's going on, what has been discovered. It's good that we discovered that, because if it was happening in cash, we couldn't know about that. So yeah, I think it's an important point right now, and I think the majority of people understands that, and the governments as well. And I think we've beyond this moment, fortunately, when actually countries were making very abrupt decisions to ban cryptocurrencies, and we saw this in the past. South Korea has a particular specifics and feature. Local people are very prone to various kind of social engineering, based scams. So bad actors were very, very much active in this space. So they had to actually ban crypto for almost 2 years. Yeah. And China with the miners, you obviously heard about these cases as well. So these were extreme cases. I think they're in the past right now, and everyone is, understanding the important feature of transparency that comes along with this technology. And someone may tell me, okay, what about privacy coins? Privacy coins that are designed to, obscure, to obfuscate the path of those who are using that. Well, privacy coins are not something that is powered by the adoption of the financial institutions right now. And we see, again, cryptocurrency space right now very much powered by larger banks adopting the technology and moving forward. They're not interested in, these kind of marginal cases at this moment. They're interested to power up the transparency and to employ this as much as possible. Yeah, so that's what I see.
Maybe let me add one thing, and I'm interested also in your opinion, I think when you look to the overall Web3 thing and also security, and I think we have to really be clear on that trust is the ultimate currency, I would call it. Now the old economy is moving to that, which for sure will help, If very old corporates, I would say, are moving into the new economy, adapting also Web3 and business models around it, will help also the startups, so to say. Because, and then it's human nature saying, am I trusting that new startup, or am I trusted that whatever 135-year-old legacy company, because they are now into that. And I think that we have always to acknowledge, and that's why I'm saying it's rather also a convergence, and that's why it's the beauty also of sometimes having from a corporate a startup ecosystem, which you are building into your corporate business domains. And that helps, and I think that's what I want to add to that, what you said, because it's, of course, trust and data privacy and what technology, from a technology point of view, is feasible, but it's still in the head of the people. Am I trusting whatever, this wallet, and am I moving my money towards that? Or is it rather better going with a corporate, and startup aside?
Let's talk a little bit about automotive. Hartmut, we share the excitement around the automotive and cars. And we launched this study together last year with our partner Blockwall, where we actually found that, especially for automotive, there's exciting use cases around blockchain when we think about autonomous driving as probably the most popular one. From your perspective, what's the most relevant topics what automotive OEMs should keep in mind when you think about the Web3 era?
Let me explain maybe 2 examples. One is when we are looking inside out. So first, it's about where are the huge cost levers, so to say, in an automotive company, and it's about ramping up new cars, it's about developing new cars, and it's about producing then, of course, these new cars. So that means one internal view you are having is completely the industrial metaverse, which I mentioned, and if you would say you can get a virtual and a digital twin of a car, which is driving into a virtual factory and telling the virtual factory how to adjust, and this virtual car is driving into a virtual warehouse and telling the warehouse how to adjust, actually, you can save 3-digit millions, So, and that's one thing, where you are going in. The second thing is when you are looking outside in and saying, okay, what is actually the car getting going forward? It is a digital endpoint. You know, and this digital endpoint, also assuming that it will be autonomous to a certain extent, has to communicate trustworthy with the outside world, so that vehicle-to-X communication, which has to happen towards infrastructure, towards other digital endpoints. So, and I think that, on the one hand side, has a huge security and data privacy relevance. On the other hand side, you can, of course, assume that you can run a large service business underneath, you know, if you get that incorporated in your car. Assuming that a car is fully immersive, you are not taking care on the steering wheel anymore, and you are having services which are connected towards the car, or even if you are driving by, you are having a service, then you can fully leverage also smart contracts and whatever, which are in the technology to a full extent.
Yeah. Maybe one more question in this regard. Yeah, the study also found an innovation dilemma a little bit for big corporations, because they kind of go for incremental innovation instead of this big bang. We stop everything we do today and we go fully decentralized. So where do you see the big hurdles of corporations today in implementing?
Oh, it's two things, actually. One thing is, of course, how you are train and educate your people, and whether you are giving them the freedom to experiment in a certain way. You know, it's not about saying, okay, there's a small startup, we have founded a small company, you know, and in that company we will do that new fancy stuff and the rest will go on as it is. No, it's about really bringing these worlds together and fueling in the knowledge into the existing teams. That's one thing, you know, and how to build up knowledge so that first from a technology point of view you understand it, and then you can automatically adapt it towards the use cases which you are having in your company. Second, pretty simple, it's where are you allocating your capital? It's the same when you are doing investments, you know, it's the same internally, saying, where are you allocating? If you are allocating it to ESG, ESG will run faster. If you are allocating it towards new technologies, Web3, of course that will push. If you are neither allocating money to these two areas, I would say it's only incremental steps you will see here. Yeah. You know? And then, of course, you have to have the attitude, and you have to have people who are also bold in doing disruptive steps, you know, within a corporate. So that's also, I think, very important.
Yeah. Maybe, Marina, anything to add from your discussions with clients? What do you see as the big challenges out there in making this really a mass adoption?
Well, I think the big challenge is, you know, to make gradual steps, but very, you know, precise step and picking up the right direction. Yeah. And of course, right now I can see I'm mostly exposed to like financial institutions, banks, for example, and they have been preparing for a long time, you know, looking at this space and being not deceived by, you know, the market cycles and everything, just constantly developing in this space. And yeah, I think thinking about not only about the impact, but about like how this journey is being taken, and what, you know, old school environment you need to take into consideration while you're getting to this, you know, dream future. I think it's very, very critical not to make like huge steps and not to disrupt, you know, many things on the go. I think that's the first one. And you mentioned education. Education is absolutely critical right now. It's something that I, particularly in compliance space, for example, we need to convert army of compliance officers who were used to work with the traditional assets, you know. Yeah. We need to teach them now digital assets. And that's not a small thing, because this space also develops super fast, and it just complicates, and it's layering up the complexity and so on. But it's possible, and it requires investments from governments, from corporations, and from companies, you know, who are involved into that. It's absolutely a critical step. Without that, we won't move forward.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the key pre-requirements for security in a decentralized ledger world is finding the same standards, right? And there are these initiatives like Mobi, like Catena-X, Gaia-X, where companies from different industries are working together to define the same set of standards as the basis for everything. Maybe, Hartmut, question to you. How important do you see the work which is being done there? And how well is it going these days?
I think it's important that we have that, and it's very important also that a common taxonomy is shared, you know, and I'm explicitly saying taxonomy, because you have to find the same view on things which might, from a beginning, look different, to a lot of companies which are already in there. And what they also have shared is actually that, for instance, blockchain as a technology might drive different use cases towards that. And I think that's good. But it means fully decentralized data model, also means fully sovereign data and data on technology sovereignty on the other hand side. And bringing these elements together enables new business models also on top. So that means you can create an ecosystem who's building stuff based on a certain data without accessing the data, and also violating the data to a certain extent. And you share the common sense of that. So this is what I'm saying. Sometimes we are all saying governance is not good and no policies, please, and no red tape. But to make it productive, to make it also that people are using it very openly, policies and especially taxonomies are not bad, and even speed up and increase the speed of implementation also.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So yeah, you just said it. The regulation is something that is happening in the market. You said this is actually something positive, right? And I think what we see in Europe is rather positive for the overall market. In the US also, there are first suggestions on the table. How would you comment on that?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because when we built at Mercedes a decentralized marketplace, for instance, it was also about, first of course, how can we integrate and also take care on antitrust and all that stuff, and take care on the data everyone is providing towards the marketplace. But secondly, also when you look to the last 3 years, regulation kicked in very heavily from China. You can't move data out of China, from Asia, from the US. And if you assume such models, you are suddenly in a decentralized world where everyone keeps his data, and even as a corporate, you have to bring these data pools, which are residing still in different countries or regions, you have to bring that together. Whatever I'm saying, it's not only technology, it's also about saying, how can I build a business model with that technology to overcome certain regulatory stuff or to overcome antitrust topics, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, that's where privacy protocols can come in handy, all these ZK rollups and and it's also interesting to see privacy segment developing in support of the regulations. So that's a really exciting place.
Yeah. Maybe one last question before we then come a little bit to an outlook for the next years. Yeah? Where do you see, maybe first to Marina, where do you see the innovation coming from? Do you rather see it from a corporate side? Do you rather see it from a startup world, entrepreneurial spirit? Where would you say is the innovation coming for the Web3 technology?
Well, I've been in the blockchain space since 2015, and of course I've seen all these new exciting things emerging from nothing, out of papers published anonymously on the web, and powering up, great minds collaborating together and inventing these great things, which are getting adopted by people. And sometimes, of course, as a society, we go, a little bit off way, like with NFTs. Great technology, but everyone was very distracted by the pictures and art and all these trading opportunities and arbitrage and everything. I'm a true believer that NFTs are designed for something else, not for exchanging pictures with each other, right? But what I'm saying is that corporates are, of course, employing this and helping the adoption happen. But I see that initial, the most evoking, provoking thoughts, the most provoking ideas, they are of course built within the startups. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So looking ahead a little bit, thinking about the year 2030, what makes you most excited about the future of cybersecurity in Web3? Where do you think we are in the year 2030 from now on?
Well, Web3 definitely makes internet a user-centric place much more than it is right now. And of course, a lot of opportunities and a lot of risks associated with that. And I can see, again, a lot of pushback also coming from many institutions, that we should regulate more to protect people more. And this customer protection becomes, very, very important. We were only thinking before about investor protection. Right now, we need to think about the user protection. And it's most, because the impact of that could be huge. And it is an exciting space. It's a worrisome space, of course, but I believe that through true collaboration and thinking about how we can collaborate within this broad space of analytics, we can find a way, again, to create a very strong line of defense. I'm speaking about collaboration, and it may sound very weird, but right now we don't see much of that yet. There is data which is vitally critical for every company that is dealing with the digital assets, for example. This is the data about like what kind of money should you accept or not, right? And no one should be sitting on this data because it may be something really like related to crime or something. These kind of data should be like in this public space. It should belong, to people. It should become available to all the companies. So I'm calling for a particular example, in this narrow space. But in a broader sense, I believe that it calls for a collaboration between governments, again, collaboration and think tanks, for corporations, particularly about how the data will be shared. So yeah, that's very exciting. Yeah, I'm a true believer that this transparency can decrease the levels of money laundering quite significantly, and that's what excites me personally very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We are running a little bit out of time. The discussion will continue, actually, if you are interested to learn more about the topic at the W3 Pizza stage, which is right over there. So thank you very much to both of you. It was really interesting talk, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.